Ooh, that looks tasty.
Welcome folks, today the Hungry Gamers is back with another mini preview, and today we're talking about Travelers Tokyo, designed by Chris Back and published by Keep Exploring Games. Now what this game is this is a light, point salad-y, kind of resource management, action selection, contract fulfillment game set in Tokyo. And if I understand correctly, there will be multiple cities eventually that you're able to play this game in, but all kind of in the same system. And really what's going to be happening is you're going to be playing the game over 3 rounds. And in each round you're going to take 4 turns. Though as you go further and further into the game, you're going to wind up with fewer and fewer things that you can do. Because at the beginning of each turn, you're going to collect cards. At the beginning of game 7, but again, as the game goes on, you're going to get fewer and fewer cards. And because you're getting fewer and fewer cards, that means you're going to have fewer and fewer options. But ostensibly, what you're going to be doing on your turn is you're either going to be moving somewhere in the city, you're going to be taking in some culture, which will simply be based on where you are in the city and if the symbols match up. And as you do that, you'll kind of advance up the culture track on your player board, or you'll be visiting these must-see locations, and as you're doing that, you'll be kind of collecting those cards and trying to get to those positions and those locations to cash in on the points and culture and whatever you're able to pick up. And as you're going through, you're simply going to be going up all of these different tracks on your player board, which will correspond to points at the end of the game. There are also missions out there that will score you points, and there are these collaborative must-see events that will be happening around the city each day where you can do them, but you have to have multiple players at the same time. Well, everyone has to be able to pay the cost of the event, but if you do, you get double the bonuses. So it is encouraging kind of a collaborative attempt at these different must-see events that are going on. But really, that's kind of the core of what's going on. So what do I like about this game? The first thing is, I think it's a cool idea. Like, it's neat just kind of traveling around different cities, seeing different things, and it becomes a cool idea because each of the cards has some kind of fact about, in this case, Tokyo. That is interesting. It is actually interesting to go to the different places, do the thing, and then read about whatever the culture is behind it. I do think that is pretty darn cool. Now, that said, how accurate is it? I have no idea. I don't know what the designer's history is with Tokyo. As far as I know, none. Or maybe Chris lives in Tokyo. I have zero idea. I don't know if there's a cultural consultant on the project. I have no idea. For all I know, this is all coming off of Wikipedia. But assuming that the facts are right, it's pretty darn cool. So I do like that. Next thing I'll say is it's very simple gameplay. Once you know what to do, turns actually go pretty darn quick. And because there's no blocking of each other, because everyone can go to all the different places all the different times, because everyone can always go everywhere and you can't be blocked out of a space, it actually is pretty easy to kind of plan ahead what you're going to do without being affected by other players around the board and having to wait to see what happens and then start to plan your turn. Also, I think the board looks cool. It's kind of neon and looks like there's lots of lights out there. I don't know. It looks pretty cool, so I like the way the board looks. The last 2 things I'll say is it is fun trying to optimize your plan, trying to figure out, okay, I need to get over this way because that's where this group event's going to be. We're going to do that, but I need to go that way by way of this other place so I can get this one thing. But of course, I want to do that. I need more resources, so I need to take this other must-see event card that I have and actually use that for its resource instead of the actual action, which brings me into the next thing, which is multi-use cards. You can use the cards for an event, or you can use the cards as a resource, and I like that. I always like that, and it just adds a little bit of a hard choice sometimes as you're trying to plan out your actions, because you don't have that many actions. Again, you get 4 turns per round, only 3 rounds in the game. So what are my quibbles with the game? The first one is, now, keep in mind, this is still a prototype that I had, and the publisher told me a bunch of things are going to be changed. As you may have seen in the picture, the icons that match the different tracks on your board, they're all way too big right now. That is being fixed. Some of the color stuff's being fixed. Some screen printing's happening. But the one thing I do need to call out is the rulebook is rough. And part of that is there's no images in there. And to the publisher's credit, they have said there will be images put into it. But there's no images, which makes it very hard to figure out exactly what everything means because some of the terms aren't explained either. Even down to the components. What are each of the components? What are they? There's some kind of big lists. And so yes, you can kind of do the math, say, okay, it says there's 4 of these. We'll actually have 4 of these things. That's what this is. That's what this is. And what I'm saying is the rule book needs some serious work before it's ready for prime time. And I only call it out here, and I don't usually call out rule books when I'm talking about an advanced copy or a prototype because I know it's in development. But it was hard to learn how to play what is actually a very simple and clean game. And so I suspect it will be fixed, but I would definitely say check out that rule book. See what it looks like, see if you can follow what's going on, because I definitely had a hard time with it. And it was definitely a big source of frustration for me. Next thing I'll say is, and this is neither a bad thing or a good thing, but it's kind of point salad-y, right? You're doing stuff to go up different tracks, and you're trying to go up as many of the tracks as you can go up, and the higher up each track you go, the more points it's worth, and so on and so on and so on. But really, that's all it is that you're doing, is trying to find different ways to go up these tracks, and you're pretty much going to get points for just about everything you do. I mean, if you move, you're not going to get points. If you just get more resources, you're not going to get points, but you're not going to do that. So it's easy to get points, and the challenge of the game is really how do you zip high up a couple of the tracks perhaps, and then a little bit up the others to kind of maximize those points. And that just might not be your thing. A lot of people don't like point salad-y type games, and this is one of those. Next thing I'll say is, even though there are the I think, very cool events where you have to have multiple people there to do those, the game's mostly a multiplayer solitaire game. And again, that does not bother me. I like multiplayer solitaire, but understand that is mostly what this is, except for those events that I think are cool. And those events that I think are cool has just a hint of co-opetition in there. Because it even says in the rulebook, table talk is encouraged to plan out doing these events. So you got to have someone help you, and if they don't want to help you, you're not going to be able to do it. Which brings me to the next point, that this game plays best at 3+. Because we're only playing with 2, those events just aren't as interesting. But if there's a lot of people around the table trying to figure out the best way to maximize these events and whatever's going on, then it becomes interesting. But it's something that I think is lost when you're just playing at the 2-player count. And the last thing I'll say is, and it's probably already obvious because of how I've been talking about it, but this is not a very deep game. It's a very simple, easy to play game that will be actually quite easy to teach, and it goes relatively quickly. And again, that's not a bad thing. But in the hobby space, I always like to say, hey, this is a light game. Just understand that's what you're getting. There's not a lot of depth here. What is there, I think, is pretty clever, but there's not a lot of depth there. But there you have it, folks. That is Traveler's Tokyo. I think it's a clever little game. I think once I figured it out, it plays pretty well. It plays fairly streamlined, and it is an enjoyable game if you're going to be able to get more than 2 players to the table. And really, the big thing is, once they fix that rulebook, I think you're going to have a pretty solid game, if this is the type of game that you're looking for. So there you have it, folks. As always, if you found this video useful, please like, subscribe, share, maybe become a channel member. As always, thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.